How's everyone doing today? Just gonna wait for everyone to pop on here. So good. So good to see all of you coming on. All right, welcome, welcome. Are you ready? All right, let me just, Zoom is bringing you all on. Oh my goodness, so good to see all of you. Okay, so I am Dara Thomason. I am the weight loss coach for quilters. If there was an award for the best niche, I am winning it for sure. It is the best niche. I am so happy to be here. I'm so happy that all of you have prioritized yourself to spend this next hour with me. Are you ready? It's going to be quite an amazing experience for you. So some of you here I see are new to me. And so I welcome you, and those who are not new to me, I just give you I love it. It's so much fun. My clients, whatever I offer, they're just there. And it's so awesome because like the transformation is so amazing. But I'm telling you, we are all humans. So I want to, hey, Wendy, I want to just invite you to just embrace all your humanness. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today. So in the chat, first of all, I want you to share with me in the topic. It's kind of an interesting webinar to work through, because so much of this is the work that I have done with myself, I'm continuing to do. And so, and I see this every day with my clients. So I want you to ask yourself this question: not living the life you want. So I want you to you don't have to put it in the chat, but on a scale to 1 to 10, I want you to think, how much of the life that you have right now is the life that you really want? So you don't have to put it in the chat, that's fine. But I really want you to think about, okay, what parts of my life do I love right now? And what parts do I not love? And I have some questions here that I want you to help. These are going to help you as you figure out that number. So can you relate to this? You don't feel the way you want to because of what others did or said. So just kind of go back in your thoughts about something someone said or something someone did that just makes you feel crazy. Like it makes you want to like rip your hair out, or you just like, like, could they just not do that all the time? Like really just let yourself go there and be in that headspace. Okay. Did someone wrong you? Could you write a whole essay or a novel on something that someone did that was like so completely ridiculous and so wrong in all the ways? Okay. So you think about in the olden days when they had like feuds and like we never talked to that clan or whatever that is. Okay. I come from several clans in my family history. And so there was a lot of, did someone wrong you? Don't share how you really feel. How often does someone say something or you find yourself somewhere and you just swallow hard? Because you're just like, oh, really? Are we really doing that again? So how often do you not say what you really want to say? Are you negative? Do you find that you're just like, oh my goodness, like, come on already. Like, what's going on? You find that there's very negative kind of thoughts that are happening a lot. What about complaining? Do you find that you complain a lot? And if you don't complain, is there like a certain area that you find that you might complain a little bit more in than in others? Okay, so I just want you to ask yourself that. Do you find that you're often making excuses for your own behavior? That could look like, well, if he just figured that out, or if he just said this, or if he would just, or she would. Do you find that you are writing, I call them sermons because it's like, if my sister just figured out that she could just do this, 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 and this, everything would be fine. Or if that neighbor would just go ahead and do this, this, and that, then everything would be solved. Okay, are you relating to me in any of this? I'm really good at these examples because this was something I used to spend a lot of time doing. I can't even tell you how many I call them bed sermons, because I would like be laying in bed at night or in the morning and just thinking, if they would just do this, this, and this, then everything would be solved. Okay. Do you often feel attacked? Okay. So even like when you watch the news, even right now, people are just getting their vaccinations. I just got mine. And yeah, I definitely had a headache yesterday and very sore arm. Do you feel attacked? Like things are just happening to you and you feel very defenseless? Okay. And do you try to avoid the spotlight? You're like, I don't really want people to notice me or talk to me or whatever. Okay. And just really, where are you feeling in that? So as I'm talking and I'm kind of giving some examples, I want you to just really give yourself a moment to dial in to anything that I have said that kind of triggered you. And I say this to my clients all the time. When I'm speaking, whatever I'm saying that's like, what is she, like whatever you get really triggered by, I want you to lean into that. Because generally speaking, if I say something that is triggering, it's because there's something that's coming up that you need to work through. It's like an emotion that's tapping you on the shoulder and saying, you should listen to that girl. Or if you get really mad at something I say, that's even better. It's like, you need to pay attention to that. All right. So indicators of blame mentality. So today we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk a little bit about the shame blame trap that we can get into, which I call like the tornado. And it just spins and spins and spins, and it picks up like cows and power lines and houses, right? Because it's like there's no getting out of it. And it just feels like it's just so dizzying and so overpowering that you just, and of course, I'm a weight loss coach. And so when we have all that dizzying, spinning, 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 one of the ways that we have gone in the past is by food. Some of us go to alcohol. Some of us go to social media, the Facebook. I call it the Facebook, email, Pinterest cycle. It's like, I need connection. I need connection. I need to feel invigorated in some way. So we are turning to something outside of us to try to make ourselves feel better internally. Okay. So this is for you. Like, I really want to just take a minute and give you a lot of love. And I really want to shout you all out here on this webinar. There are tons of things you could be doing with your time. So the fact that you are here with me trying to achieve a different mental state, emotional awareness, the more emotional awareness you have, the more emotional health you're going to have. And so when I just really want to give you so much love and like patting on the back that you are taking this time for yourself. And those people who are watching the replay on my YouTube channel, I welcome you and I applaud you for doing that. That is a really big step. And that's this meeting, like this showing me that you're here, that you're taking this time is showing me that you really are allowing yourself permission to finally take that kind of responsibility for yourself. So you are in the right place and I'm so happy for you. And so I do encourage you to get out your notebooks, to like write things down and really focus. So turning off your notifications, just giving yourself this time. It's really powerful. All right. So, indicators of the blame mentality. Are you defensive? Do you find yourself defensive? Do you find yourself hiding? Do you find yourself complaining quite a bit when you're in conversations with other people, when you are even on social media? Are you making comments that are beating other people up or complaining, you're always spotting all the negative? Okay. And it's all about you. And when I talk about that one, what I mean by that is you'll notice that when someone is so we're talking about being a victim, they're always the target of somebody else. So what I mean is that it's not necessarily what they'd say. So like they wouldn't say necessarily they attacked me, but maybe they would say something like they did something to me. So for example, if you don't get invited to a party, they did that to me. They excluded me on purpose. However, what really happened is they just didn't invite you. It doesn't mean that they did anything to you. In fact, they may not even have thought of you. They may have had one of those thousand reasons, logistical or whatever, not inviting you. But you spin the facts to make it seem that they did something to you, that you're the victim of their invite list. You can't help but make it about you. So does this kind of sound familiar to you? So I'm just here trying to like really see what's going on in your thought. Okay. So the problem is if these are the behaviors and they're very similar to the questions I asked on the very first page, the thing is you're now falling into a victim mentality. And it's really sneaky because we're all very capable, competent women. We have accomplished a lot in our life. And so victim doesn't really seem to relate to us. But as I was asking those questions on the first page, how often does your mind go to, well, if she just would have done this, or she would have done that, or did they not even think about this? Like when you have those kinds of, if he wouldn't have said that to me, I wouldn't be feeling this way. If he could just be more thoughtful, or he could just be more kind. That's actually putting you into the victim mentality. It's very sneaky and it's very subtle, but it's incredibly dangerous. And we're going to talk a little bit more in this webinar about how it's affected your weight and your relationship with food. So when we are going through this blame, we're spending a lot of time in blame, we're becoming a victim, and every victim needs a villain. Now, I'm going to just shift gears for a moment because I am talking about shame. Now, shame, for example, is you feeling like something about you is not good enough. So with shame, it's saying, if I was better, if I was smarter, if I was more efficient, if I had taken more time for myself, if I had learned better, if I had paid more attention at school, or if I had, been more friendly, whatever that was, I would have had a different result. So you're turning to yourself and basically beating yourself up. And the problem is we believe it. We believe that had we done something better, if it had been more thoughtful, if we had been more paid more attention, we would have had different results. And the issue is with shame is that we look for evidence. So if we have this belief like I'm not good enough, so when someone says something, oh, I thought you would have done that already. Yeah, you're right. I'm not good enough. Nope, I'm not good enough. So it's like, yep, proving my point, because our brains actually like to be right, even if it's not very positive for us. Okay. So again, then it's putting you back into being a villain. Now, a villain, it means that, so if we're a victim, then we are what? What kind of thoughts does a victim have? You guys can put it in the chat. I'm powerless. What else? What other kinds of things does a victim feel? I always like to think about, oh, poor me. Yeah, they have a lot of self-pity. What else does a victim do? Does a victim spend a lot of time problem solving? Yeah, why is this happening to me? Next, now what? Like, just like so much apathy. They feel inferior. Totally. You guys are so smart. Okay. So as I ask those questions at the beginning, and we're thinking about, you know, these traits of blaming. And the other part with the blame is, had I done better, or if I had a different parent, or if I had a different upbringing, or if I was, there's a lot of times we think of a circumstance. If a circumstance was different, had I made a better choice in my marriage partner, or when we bought that house, or my job, or whatever that was, it's like you're turning something outside of you that you can blame. All right. So I want you to think about how that's happening for you. All right. So how does this relate to weight loss? Do you blame the program you're on? Okay, so I have a weight loss program called Love Yourself Thin. It's a 12-week program, and I tell the ladies, look, you didn't gain the weight in 12 weeks. I will teach you a way that you will lose 1 to 2 pounds a week consistently if you follow these rules. And I even have a money-back guarantee. And so they need to do things like daily or 3 times a week. They do a thought download. They do 3 models a week. They need to do the worksheets. They need to come to 2 out of 3 classes. And then I have this way of them doing 3 things every day that will help them do that. So if they aren't losing the weight and they aren't doing the work, they could just blame me. They're like, oh, Dara's program doesn't work. But I know my program works because weight loss science is simple. Emotions are the key to the universe. And we get to create a future you whom we love. I also know it works is because I've had lots of people lose a lot of weight and learn to keep it off when they follow my principles. But the problem is, if you don't do the work, if you're not doing the thought downloads and you're not doing the models, which I'm going to show you an example of intentional and unintentional model in today's program, today's webinar. You can see what's going on. By the way, this is the mosquito bite. It's been like the last 2 days. So do you blame me? Or do you blame keto? Or do you blame this? Or do you blame that? Okay. So just ask yourself that in the past. Do you blame the food you're eating? Oh, it's got so many pesticides. Oh, it's got all these chemicals. I can't buy just natural food. I always say, if it walked on the earth or was grown in the ground, it's good to eat. Do you blame people for bringing food to your house? Oh, if the neighbors would just stop already. It's all their fault. Do you blame the Girl Guides for coming around with the cookies? I just have to support them. I just have to eat their cookies. Do you blame your genes? Oh, do you blame your age or your cycle? Oh, I'm perimenopause, menopause, can't help it. I just got to embrace the fat belly. Do you blame COVID? Well, if it wasn't COVID, I wouldn't eat so much. I wouldn't have to worry. Do you blame your culture? Well, we just have to eat at every event we have. I just have to eat and then it'd be rude. Like, I really want you to ask these questions to yourself, and I really want you to be honest with yourself about that. Okay? Okay. So when we think about this blame shame cycle, so there's some version of you that I'm not good enough, so you're looking for evidence, or blame, so you're putting yourself in like being defensive, you're hiding, you're complaining about things, it's all about you, then you become a victim. Pardon me. Now, a lot of times we do this, we go into avoid, resist, and react because we don't want to feel a negative emotion. So I've got Here we go. This was from last week. So I know I don't expect everyone to remember everything I teach every single time, but I do want to show you this. And this is super interesting. So we have a feeling, and quite often we have like a negative feeling. And if we don't listen to it, right? So we avoid, we resist or react. These are my billboards that say like, you're not smart enough, or that person is not kind, or whatever that is. We actually get to our worst case scenario. And so for all of you who might suffer from anxiety, anxiety literally is just being in your worst case scenario and not getting out of it. So I do give you very practical tips and tools in my webinar that I did last week. And I recommend you going back, but this is part of what I was teaching. So I want you to ask yourself, are you ignoring? Are you drinking? Are you overworking? Are you over social mediaing? Are you not being present in your lives? And are you gaining weight? So if you are avoiding those feelings, these are your actions. So you're going to know that that's what's happening. Are you resisting a negative feeling? So that's that negative feeling. That can actually even be a positive feeling. Like if I said to you, I'm so proud of you. Like I see some of you on here who I'm like so proud. Like one of my clients on here, this is her second time in my group. The first time she was in my group, she only came to one call. And now this is week 3 of my second group. She has lost over 20 pounds. I'm so proud of her. Another lady who's on this call, she was in my first group in October when I did it. She lost 30 pounds in 12 weeks. And she comes to all of my trainings, and she comes, I do a monthly checkup call for all my paid clients. And she's kept on it. I'm so proud of her. Okay. I even have a lady on here this is her second time being on the call, and she kind of lost some momentum. She lost quite a bit of weight and she's still struggling, but I'm so proud of her because she's not giving up on herself. Okay. So I want you to really look at, are you pushing away feelings? Are you fighting against things? Are you getting mad at yourself? I always tell my clients, you're not allowed to punch yourself in the face. You're not allowed to be a jerk to yourself. One of the reasons why we're overweight is because we have all these negative thoughts, and we don't want to be in our negative thoughts. It's not fun being us. So we turn to the food. We're like, well, I need a break from myself. I'm being such a jerk. Okay. So are you doing that? Are you punching yourself in the face a lot? And so when you resist, you go to that negative emotion. You resist this negative emotion, but so instead you just say, oh, what's wrong with you? What's wrong? Why can't you figure this out yet? Like, come on, we've learned this model. We've learned these tools. What's wrong with you? Okay. So you're basically just doing like the backdoor punching yourself in the face. Are you getting tense? So even when I'm talking, I want you to like see what's going on. Or are you reacting? So if you rush around, like my life is so busy, my life is so busy, but by the end of the day, you don't even really know what you did. Do you kind of yell at people? Do you snap at people? Do you snap at yourself? Do you try to control everything? Are you a control enthusiast? Are you staying up late because you're like, I just can't get anything done? So this is like a really good check-in. And one of the problems that I have for my clients is that they think that because they feel anxious, it causes them to eat. And when they eat, they feel out of control. And then when they feel out of control, they eat more and they're anxious. It's not, and a lot of people think I just feel anxious. And so that's what's causing me to eat. No, it's you don't feel, you want to avoid feeling a certain thing. So then you feel anxious about it because you're avoiding, resisting, and reacting. And then because you don't like that feeling, you're trying to go to something, which by the way, we have a physiological response. When we eat any food, we do get a dopamine hit. That is how we're wired. So it sends a false message. Oh, when I eat, I feel better. Yes, you do get a dopamine hit, but the problem is you're not actually solving the real problem. And then the solution, and this is what I'm teaching you today, is we need to accept whatever emotion. So when we are blaming others, we are avoiding a negative emotion. And when we avoid a negative emotion, we eat and then we gain weight. Okay. So these are the steps we need to take. Now I'm just going to go back over here. So here we have the avoid, resist, react. So then we eat food. So instead, and there's only two reasons why we're overweight. We overhunger. So that means we just eat more often than we need. We're spiking our insulin. We're giving our body more fuel than it requires because we're having like, I call it like being like the hobbits, right? They have like first breakfast, second breakfast, pre-lunch. They just eat all the time. Our body doesn't need all that extra fuel. Even if we're eating like healthy things, every time we eat, we're giving ourselves calories. And calories literally it's like a calculation of fuel burning. And every time we eat, we spike our insulin. Our insulin train is like, oh, we got to get to work. We got to do the stuff. We got to get going. And then it just stimulates all that action. Okay. And then when we do that, we actually never access our fat storage. And then we just keep becoming a storage unit. Our body is literally just storing lots and lots of energy. So when we overhunger, we eat too frequently and then over desire. That's eating like the sugar and the flour, which by the way is super refined. They've taken out all the proteins and everything. And now we're just eating all this fluff, which if you read the ingredients on the package, it's like the body's like, I don't even know what to do with this. If we can't pronounce it, it's like foreign to the body. The body's like, I guess I'll just put it in the thigh. I guess I'll just put it in there. Now, I do want to say that these are the two reasons why we're overweight. But one of the things that happens to keep us this way is if we do not take care of our emotional health, we have increased amounts of cortisol, which I taught about this a few weeks ago. And cortisol is a huge factor. So I did some self-coaching and worked through a bunch of stuff last Friday. And so Saturday morning, I literally stepped on a scale and I had lost 5 pounds. Like the body says there's some danger here. We need to hold on to this energy. We better not release it because this girl feels like there's a lot of danger. And I have a client, quite a few clients that once they get into more of their ideal weight, they realize that they'll have like a 3 or 4 pound gain, or they'll not be losing as quickly. And we see that there's a level of cortisol. But generally speaking, these are the two reasons. Okay. So I want to show you this. Now, one of the tools that is going to help you to not have blame in your life anymore is, so let's go to one of the things that we really worry about is what other people say. Okay, so I want you to see if you can relate to this. You're at dinner with your family, and someone in your family says, we think you're really lazy. Like, what have you done this past year? You're really lazy. Okay. So I'm going to show you this thought model that I use with my clients and tools I teach in my program. So this is an unintentional thought process. Okay. So the circumstances, people say words. So my sister said, everyone thinks you're lazy. Okay. So she said those words. And one of the reasons we have blame, we talked about the blame things, is it's because when we believe what she said, or if we think that what she said was terrible, then because we have a thought, my family is the worst. Okay. And when you have the thought, my family is the worst, then we feel hurt. Now, in the chat, has this ever happened to you? And do you ever feel afraid of going somewhere? Are you afraid of going to your in-laws? Are you afraid of going to dinner with friends? Are you afraid of entertaining people at your home? Well, I mean, Canada is super shut down, so we're not even really allowed to be like entertaining people in our homes. But are you like, do you find yourself really worrying about what other people think of you? Judgment, okay? Super interesting. And I want you to say why. I want you to tell me why. Like, when you go to a family function or you go to a work thing, or if you go to even your kids' sports, how much fear do you live by of what other people say? And like, why? Why should we be living out of fear of what other people say? Well, it's because, for example, here, people said, people think you're lazy. And you're like, oh, my family's the worst. And when you have the thought, my family's the worst, then you feel hurt. And when you feel hurt, this is what you do. You complain to your husband, you turn inside, you don't talk to others, you think of all the other times that they said negative comments, you ruminate on all the family problems you have. You compare to other families who are better. You feel sorry for yourself. Okay. So now when someone says, we think you're lazy, and then you have that thought, my family is the worst, and then you feel hurt. Then now the rest of the night, this is how you're going to go. This is how things are going to go. So when you're spending all your time complaining to your husband, turning inside, not talking to others, think of all the times that they said negative comments, ruminate on family problems, compare yourself, compare to other families like they're way nicer, they wouldn't do that. What is the result that you're going to get when you spend all your time doing this because you feel hurt from the thought, my family is the worst? You don't love your family, or you don't have loving thoughts about your family. Interesting, right? So you didn't go to the dinner party deciding, I'm going to not love my family. I'm going to just like really hate on them and think they're terrible. No, you didn't intend to do that, but that is actually what's happening. And so, how we talk about the definition of insanity, expecting a different result, but doing the same thing. The problem is we don't learn about our thoughts. People don't understand that our thoughts are what causes our emotions. I'm reading a super interesting book, Switch on Your Brain, and it's a doctor, and she talks about she talks about our thoughts. And one of the things that I was sharing with one of my clients this morning was, like, for example, Dr. Lipton, he said, so he studies things like gene disorders, Huntington's chorea, cystic fibrosis, etc. And he said a staggering 98% of diseases are related to lifestyle choices. In other words, our thinking. So our thinking creates so much of the diseases that we have. So let's go over here to an intentional thought. So someone in your family could say, you're lazy. And your thought could be, what could be a thought? Everyone's entitled to their opinion. They don't understand me. That's super curious. Or that's funny. Even that. And the feeling could be, like if you said, that's funny, the feeling, that's funny they thought that. And then you could be like dismissive. And then when you feel dismissive, you just carry on conversation, focus on, focus on conversation. You're like, oh, that's funny. People are so funny. Dismiss. Then you ask people questions about themselves. You just have, enjoy the time together. And the result is what others think are their thoughts and don't affect your time at party. Okay. Is that interesting? It's like people can say words. Because one of the things that's interesting about this is if there was a part of you that believed what they said was true, then you react, right? But we always get to decide what we want to think about ourselves. All right, so I wanted to show you something, because one of the things that people can say is like, well, I don't want to be a doormat, Dara. Okay, so you might have had that thought. Well, this is the thing that's interesting. When people say words to you, if you believe their words and you react to them, you're actually giving your own power away to them. You're saying, oh, I'm lazy. Oh, that means I'm terrible. Okay, power given to somebody else. Okay. So the problem is, and if you believe their thoughts, then you're going down to their level, you accept their comments, and now you become a victim. And so now when you're a victim, you're powerless. And now you've given your free will away. And so then what I'm wanting you to do is I want you to live in your own integrity. So this is something I teach in my program. So people have thoughts, right? So here's a conversation. So somebody says words. I mean, so we have thoughts, but then you say the thoughts, right? That's words. So they say, hey, you're lazy. And then here you look at their thoughts always, and you're like, you make a decision. Is that true or not? Maybe sometimes I am lazy. And in fact, quite often on a Friday night, I'm totally lazy. It's awesome. I love being lazy. Because you now are getting to decide for yourself. You're looking for the truth of what they said. You're like, yeah, sometimes I am lazy. You're right. It's actually not a problem. In fact, I think it's really important to have some times where I'm lazy. It's really good for my brain. Okay. And so then when you have that, the reason I have this picture here, it's like what you think of your thoughts. So I have my little heart here is the most important. And so for some of you who are new to me, I have the Perfection Recovery Program. It's for perfectionists. And one of the problems with perfectionists is that they feel they put what other people think of them as more important than what they think of themselves. So when you do that, when you say what other people think of me is more important than what I think, then we actually are automatically becoming victims. And when we do that, we become people pleasers because, of course, we're needing to get other people's approval. And so now we're like, it's like we're running on a treadmill trying to get approval from everyone. We're saying no to ourselves because every time you say yes to someone, it's actually saying no to you. And so now you're like running this and running that, and you're responsible for this, and you got to make sandwiches for that. And you're just constantly needing other people's approval. But the problem is you're never really truly even believing. Like you get that little dopamine hit of them saying, oh, thank you. But it's at the cost of you putting what you need at the back burner. And so now you're not having the emotional wellness that's going to help you to be the best version of yourself. So just in the chat, I want you to just put any sort of questions that you might have, things that you can relate to. Yeah, if you'd like to, I would love to hear it. Now, one of the things that I want to teach you today in this training is, so we did talk about acceptance, but one of the things is when we take a closer look at our thoughts, So let's say, for example, if people say words to us, so this is a really silly example. So if someone says, I really hate your blue hair, but you don't have blue hair, you're probably not going to start crying. You're probably not going to say that hurts my feelings. You're probably not going to drop into victim mode because none of you believe that what they said is true, because there's no part in what they said is true. When someone says something to you and you do believe it, or there's a part of you that believes it, that's when it gets to you. So I want you to just think about that. We are encouraged to think of others first. People please, praise for it. Right. And so one of the problems is, and this brings me to along these lines, is we have been conditioned, especially as children, which isn't a problem. In fact, like I was a school teacher for 10 years, so I did praise children, and I have 5 of my own children. So way to go, good job. That's really great when you did the dishes and you weren't asked. So there's a difference in us as adults to children saying these behaviors are appropriate, these behaviors are good. And the issue is you then think, oh, that adult said I'm good, so now I can believe that I'm good. Whereas if they said, I didn't really like how you drew your picture, then you could say, then that could be felt like, then I can't like my picture. You see the difference? And so what I'm teaching you to do is learn to get your own back. Like, let's say you did draw the picture and you're like, actually, I really like this picture. And I really like that I'm learning to use scale. Like I'm in the process of learning that. And so we haven't learned to get our own back. We haven't necessarily, if we haven't like evolved in valuing what we think of ourselves is the most important, then we are now lacking that skill. And that is something I really want to emphasize to all of you who are here and those watching the replay, that literally learning how to not go to victim mentality and going into blame, it's actually a skill. It's a skill set and we can learn it. So it's just a belief pattern that we've had, and we can change that belief pattern and we can build that skill. Just like with diet mentality, so many of us have learned that diet mentality. Okay, such a good question, Mary. How do we get to where you trust yourself and your thought opinions? Absolutely. So one of the things that we can do is I often say this to my clients. So I remember listening to learning about this concept, and this lady was asking about making decisions. And the coach, she said, well, we can actually just flip a coin. And the lady had been talking about her son getting his ears pierced. And it was like this big debate, and ethically they didn't like getting their ears pierced, but their son was 17 and a half. And when he became an adult, he would be allowed to get his ears pierced. And I remember just being like on the edge of my seat thinking, how is she going to solve this problem? How is she going to do this? And my coach said, just flip a coin. And I was like, what? You don't just flip a coin. You have to investigate and everything. And she said, if you flip a coin, it's going to be 50-50. And she said, do you like your reasons? And I say, do they feel like love? Okay. So either way, if the son got his ears pierced or not, if she said, no, you can't pierce your ears, the part of it, the 50% that she's happy about is that, she's being a parent and she's doing her, whatever, ethical, blah, blah, blah. But but then there's the negative of you're not teaching me to be responsible, all the things that then she could feel like disciplinary or whatever it is. But if So that was, so she flipped the coin and it was yes. Ooh, this is hard to work backwards. Then she'd have the 50% that would be difficult and 50% hard. But if she flipped the coin and it said no, she would still have 50% of the difficult and 50% of the hard. People judging her, people, whatever that is. So that's a really big game changer. So for you, Mary, in that question, how do we get to where you trust yourself and your thoughts? You get to make that decision over and over and over again. And you get to just experience like, oh, this is I made my decision and there's going to be some negative. Yesterday, I was talking to my kids about how detrimental happily ever after is, because what it's saying is that you must have married the wrong person, because had you married the right person, then you would be happy all the time. Had you bought the right house, or had you picked the right career, or had you, made that decision to have X number of kids. So we're putting so much importance on the circumstance, but it's never about the circumstance. It's always our thoughts about the circumstance. So that is like a thought error that we have propagated. And it's interesting because even in this book, when she was talking about how our mind is designed to control our body. And in fact, we can control our reactions to anything. And in doing so, we change our brains. So it's regardless of our house, our husband choice, our whatever that is, we always actually get to make that decision. And so that is what I teach in my program. There's another part, and literally we can actually change the way our thinking is. So if we grew up like what you said, Colleen, is we are encouraged to think of others first, people please, raise for it. So you can actually say, when I was a child, because I would even almost question that. I think your parents, and even like Christian beliefs, because I myself have those Christian beliefs of like charity never faileth, serving others. But we also know that if you don't take care of yourself, like even the parable of Jesus at the well, if you don't take care of yourself, like drink the living water, like and be able to do that for you, then you are not your best version of yourself. So even when Mary and Martha were talking and, they were complaining like, wait a minute, Martha was busy doing all the things, but Mary was like, shouldn't she just be sitting here listening? So we have to, this is one of the things that's really fun about the way that I teach you in my program and in coaching. It's available. You can look at your past and you can rewrite your past. So that would be a perfect example, Colleen, where you're like, I always thought that I was supposed to people please, and I was praised for it. Well, let's just go to the truth of it. And that's what I'm teaching you to do in this webinar, is to actually look for the truth of the situation and really be able to see what was really going on. So have you ever been in a situation where somebody said something really negative to you, or wrote a letter and said, I don't like this, this, and this, and this about you? Has that ever happened to you? Well, let's just go there. Let's just say that somebody had done that and they wrote, I don't like this about you. I don't like this about you. And this and this and this is terrible. So how different would it be for you to just look at that and actually look for the truth of what they're saying? So what if there is a piece of it, like my kids could say, Mom, you're such a control freak. And I could be like, yeah, you know what? When it comes to your safety and it comes to the kinds of foods that you eat, and it comes to like the way I want to teach you to be like a good, responsible human. Yeah, I guess I am a control freak. Yeah, I could see how you could think that. Totally. Right? I just really want you to laser in on what could be true about the way that they're perceiving or the way that they're talking to you. And I like what Byron Katie said. She said, when you're willing to accept the parts of you that aren't perfect, you maintain your power. So even if my kids would say, or like, think about your example. I'm just using a one from me so that I can illustrate this. They say, Mom, you're a control freak. I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. There's parts of me that are like, and especially like we're going to go and do surfing. So what am I going to do? I'm going to review all the rules. I'm going to establish, like different standards for them when we're going to have a buddy system, or we're going to do this and do that. And we're going to talk about rip tides. And so when I can just accept that, yeah, like when it comes to especially things of like danger, that's something I spend a lot of time on. And I love that when you're willing to accept the parts of you that aren't perfect. And hey, I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect mom. I always joke with my kids, if I was, I would have been translated already. I wouldn't need to be on this earth being tested and tried. Then I can maintain my power. I can be very truthful with myself. Now, the ability to recognize, and when you do that, you're also saying, yeah, I have negative emotion and that's okay. It's totally fine. So when you can recognize that and let go of any negative emotions, such as defensiveness, that's when I have my true power. When I can find myself. So, because if you find yourself being defensive, what happens? You can find a way to release that desire to fight and to defend yourself, to know that there's nothing that needs to be defended, that other people can have whatever opinions they want, and that you don't have to argue with them or prove your worth because you know your worth. That's a game changer. That's what vulnerability is. It's a positive alternative to the victim mentality. So I always say to my clients, the more willing you are to be vulnerable, the more willing you are to feel all the feelings, the more success you're going to have, guaranteed. And if you want to do more work on that, obviously join my program. But someone who's a real queen of this is Brene Brown, and she wrote the book Daring Greatly. And she actually has made a whole study of blame and shame. And it's so when we really talk about being willing to feel all of the feelings, then it enables you to have so much courage because you're not afraid of fear anymore. You're not having to run away from yourself. And the other part of that is in relationships, you don't have to be a control freak anymore or control enthusiast, because people can say whatever they want, and we can always choose to decide what we want to think about what they say. And this is where our strength can just become our superpower. Because if we're able to hear someone's feedback, hear someone's opinion, or hear whatever they're saying without being defensive, that's the deepest form of intimacy. That's true not only with other people that you love in your life, but also with yourself. So I really want to encourage you to think about your relationship with yourself, and how often do you allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself? Or do you run away with people pleasing? Or do you run away with perfectionism? Do you run away blaming? Blaming is a huge shield from allowing you to come inside yourself and see what's really going on. When you can accept your opinion of yourself without getting defensive and without starting a battle, that's vulnerability. Then you're not having to turn to the food. You're not having to blame other people, none of that. You literally can take responsibility for yourself, and you can now start loving yourself unconditionally. And when you can love yourself unconditionally, and I teach this in my program, you actually cannot change your body permanently until you accept your body for exactly how it is right now. So when you can just put your hands on that belly of yours, and you can just be with, oh, here's the fat, and your love handles and your thighs and your bum. Like if you can just be like, oh, or just even looking at it and being like, yep, that's my body. Because how did your body get that way in the first place? You put the food in your mouth. There's only two reasons we're overweight: over hunger, over desire. So nobody force fed you. Nobody made you eat those things. Nobody did. So when you can really look at yourself and really look at your body and say, I'm the one who did this to my body. I'm the one who added all this extra fat. That's why my arms look like legs. They're so big. And if you add, I'm going to add the extra cortisol because that's definitely that's a contributor. So if you are constantly having all this stress, your body's like, we need to hang on to all this weight. You better not let go of it. All right. So I'm talking all the things. I'm sharing it all. I'm being, okay. All right. So I have 4 more minutes. I'm going to be going on an Instagram live with Purple Cats. She's so awesome. So I want to just ask you again, are you blaming others for your weight gain? Are you blaming others for the way your body looks? And if you are, you're not going to change it when you're in that victim mentality. I can promise you that. So in the last 4 minutes, do you want more of this? Do you want more of understanding what it takes to lose the weight and keep it off? I have the 1% club. The 1% club, that's saying that all people who lose weight, this is a rough estimate of lose weight, keep it off. Only 1% of people do that. And why? Well, today I talked about that. Are you blaming other people? Are you never not taking your own responsibility for yourself? So I have a pop-up group. It's going to be May 25th to 28th. It's $9. For that $9, you get this beautiful workbook. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. I'm going to be teaching you. I'm going to be teaching you from my program. Information. So much information. I'm going to teach you some tools. There's an incredible amount of value. And the reason I'm doing this is because I know it's scary to invest in yourself. You've invested a lot in other diets and other things. So I'm going to give you a taste for $9 for 4 days. You can be in my pop-up group for 7 days. The recordings will be there until the Sunday night at midnight. So if you haven't signed up, you need to go and sign up. It's in my Instagram profile. If you're on my email list, you can get it. And it will take you to Eventbrite, and it's $9. You just pay there. If you think a friend would really enjoy it, invite her too. The pop-up group is really fun. We have to introduce each other. There's different topics you can interact with. So $9, my pop-up group. How to be in the 1% club, how to lose the weight and keep it off. Do you have any questions? So when you learn this skill, you will learn how to take 100% responsibility for yourself. You will learn to see yourself without judgment. You're going to learn to live in integrity with yourself. You're going to have a new level of awareness, and you're going to be able to look for truth, and you don't have to hide from anything. You can be in any conversation with any person. You can go to any party, any interaction with anybody, and you no longer have to be afraid. That's what happens when you learn this blame shame. And when you come to my program for $9, you can experience what it's going to be like. All right, everybody. If you are a fan of Tula Pink, you're welcome, Wendy. If you're a fan of Tula Pink, you need to come on my Instagram story. Tracy from Purple Cats, she had an amazing Tula Pink party at her shop. All right, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.